We as people change a lot. When they ask little kids, they're like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, oh, I want to be an astronaut or a teacher. Our interests change, our environments change. We evolve as individuals and human beings. 3 years ago, I embarked on a full-time journey as a professional software engineer. I wanted to be exposed to different problems on the business level so that when I'm ready to run my own company, I already have some experience. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video today, I want to share some thoughts, some reasons for why I decided to stop to code, for why I decided to move out of software engineering. And I'm really hoping that this video will serve to you as advice, as a story that is possible, as an inspiration to what you want to do next. You know, if you want to continue and feel more confident in your current career path after listening to my reasons, that's amazing. If you feel more inspired to take a different path and journey, that's incredible too. So, actually, when I switched to software engineering about 5 or 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess, when I embarked on this journey to be a software engineer, I never thought that it would be something that I would do for decades. So I never essentially envisioned myself making a career out of being a software engineering IC, and IC is individual contributor. I've always thought that it would be a means to an end to something else. And there's a few reasons for why I thought that back 5 years ago. One of the reasons was that ultimately I've always envisioned myself building my own company. So that was number one thing. And then two, I also knew that software engineering was extremely exciting to me at the time, but at the same time, I knew that long term, I wouldn't enjoy working so individually on deeply technical problems without too much exposure to business problems, without too much exposure to a lot of people in a lot of different functions. I knew that ultimately I wanted to do that, and that's where a lot of my strengths and interests lied. However, 5 years ago, as I said, I was really excited about software engineering, and despite the fact that I knew that it was kind of a means to an end, that I would be in a software engineering function for only a certain period of time, I wanted to do it. And I want to mention an important thing also. You know, in the current world, and especially with the previous generation, there was kind of this idea that you had to pick a career path, you had to pick a role and be in that role for years on end. So, you know, if you wanted to be a doctor, then you're a doctor for the next 40 years. If you wanted to be a teacher, then you're a teacher for like the next 50 years. That's what you're committed to. And you know, when they ask little kids, they're like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, oh, I want to be an astronaut or a teacher. And then it's assumed that that's, you know, the path that they're going to take for the rest of their lives. If you were to imagine you were a kid right now and you were asked, what is it that you want to be when you grow up? I would love to hear what is that ultimate goal and dream of yours, guys. So please share your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to hear what is it that you want to ultimately be. We as people change a lot. Our interests change, our environments change. We're exposed to new problems and new things. We evolve as individuals and human beings. And I believe that, you know, it's totally fine to have multiple careers throughout the rest of your life. In fact, that if you're interested in something, then perhaps you should pursue it, and maybe later on you'll make a career out of it. Because we evolve, it's totally fine to, you know, want to be a thing X for a certain period of time, and then you are exposed to, as I said, to new challenges, to new problems, you have new interests, and then you might want to evolve out of it. There's a lot of people that have had multiple careers through their lives, and that's just totally okay. There should not be any stigma around it. In fact, if that's what you want to do, great for you. And if you guys are not familiar with my story of how long I've been an engineer and of this transition, make sure that you subscribe to this channel down below. I always really appreciate it, and then you can embark on this journey with me. And then 3 years ago, I embarked on a full-time journey as a professional software engineer. Before that, I also did a few internships as a software software engineer, but professionally full-time after university. I have been in the role for 3 years. And as I said before, I was always on the lookout to really figuring out what is the next that I wanted to do. And what I've been realizing throughout my journey as a professional software engineer is that the more senior you get, the more deep into the weeds of technical problems you have to be. And that was exciting to me for a while, but then after a certain point, after reaching certain levels, I've realized that, the more I get into it, the more specialized I have to be, the deeper I have to go, the more time I have to spend on it, and there is also always opportunity cost. Do I really want to spend time doing this, really getting honed into this one technical specific field or problem or domain expertise, or do I want to spend that time pursuing other interests that I've had before, but ultimately interests that have been more and more surfaced in my own personal and professional life. And what those interests are interests around how the business is run, how business strategy is determined. I wanted to be exposed to more people. I wanted to be exposed to leadership, to learn from them how they're thinking. As a software engineer, you can progress in different levels, and then you can become an engineering manager too, which was something that I've considered. However, I just realized that because it was still highly involved in the technical domain expertise of your team, that wasn't quite the path that I decided to take right now. So essentially the reason number one was that opportunity cost. Do I really want to spend time focusing on these deeply technical problems and really becoming an expert in my domain and becoming like a higher level software engineer, or do I really want to pursue other things that I've been interested for a while, but ultimately I wanted to get to a certain point in engineering before pursuing them. So that was reason one. And then reason two, as I already mentioned, being exposed to business problems, opportunities, strategy, operations, that was always a huge interest to me. And one of my personal strengths is also interacting with people, and as a software engineer you do interact with people for sure, but that's not really something that you're engaged with on extremely regular basis. Your job doesn't really depend on relationships, influence, negotiations as much. It definitely does to an extent, but it's not that type of role. And for me, working with people has always been extremely exciting. To give you an example, a year ago I worked on a project redesigning reservation details on Airbnb for hosts across multiple different platforms. And in that project, there were a lot of stakeholders: the host team, the guest team, the payments team, the trust team. And we needed to really collaborate with all those stakeholders to align on the vision for what we're doing, to communicate to them so that they're aware. And that part of the job was actually my favorite. I had a lot of fun implementing the actual tech for it, but that stakeholder alignment, that figuring out of the process, that working with all these different people was extremely exciting for me, and I felt like I was really good at it too. So I actually wanted to be exposed more to things like that. Another great reason for why I decided to make the switch to now I work with a director of engineering on more business strategy operations of our engineering org. I wanted to be exposed to different problems on the business level so that when I'm ready to run my own company, I already have some experience. And again, as a software engineer, sure, you're exposed to some of it, but it's not ultimately the meat of your work. So you're only exposed to it as much as you really want to be. But in this new role, because I work with a senior leader, because I work with other people in managerial roles in the company, I really see how those leaders are thinking, how they're making the decisions, how the company is actually run, why is it run the way it's run. So that really gives me a lot of insights in a lot of different skills, in a lot of different decisions, in a lot of different ways, mindset essentially ways. So what I want you to take away from this, guys, is that I strongly believe that you should always be in tune with your interests, how you're feeling about the work that you're doing. Are you feeling fulfilled by it? Are you learning the things that you're excited about learning? Are you progressing in the direction that you want to be progressing? I made a video the other week about my favorite productivity books, and in some of them they talk about prioritization, and prioritization here, prioritization of what is it that you're excited about, is extremely important, because it's very easy to fall into a career, it's very easy to get complacent, to get comfortable. If, let's say, in this specific case, software engineering is what you're extremely excited about and that's what you want to do, or that is what accomplishes certain goals for you, you should absolutely 100% do it. It's amazing that you have figured it out for yourself. But if there is something that is not as exciting for you, you don't feel like you are moving in the right direction, you're not excited about the problems that you're solving or learning, maybe if you are a software engineer, by just the virtue of switching companies or switching teams, you can fix some of those problems. I personally have been on a lot of different software engineering teams, exposed to different problems, so that I really figured that aspect out for myself. But what I'm trying to say is that you should reflect on what you want to do, and you should find opportunities for yourself to learn those things, to do those things, to really find a path to the direction you want to move into. Because ultimately, if you don't prioritize your own interests, skills, interests, someone else will prioritize them for you. That is actually a note that I want to leave this video on, and that's the lesson and advice that ultimately I want to give to you. I hope you have a wonderful day. As always, I hope you stay motivated, excited about your days, about what you're doing, about what you're working on. I would love to again hear your thoughts about what is ultimately the direction that you want to move in. What is it that you want to be when you grow up? So leave that in the comment section down below. And don't forget to, as always, like this video and subscribe to this channel. I always really appreciate it, and hope you have a wonderful day. Bye for now.